I speak from the source. All that is written, or has ever been written, or will ever be written, exists together in an eternal moment. All who come to remember dwell in a place of learning. One learns by living. Truths are understood and made divine, or else they're distorted. With life comes knowledge. Through knowledge, one remembers. I can't remember the last time I was so freaking angry! I can't even cross the street without almost getting hit by a car. The driver was making a turn into the crosswalk, and I had the right of way, but he wasn't even looking where he was going. You know, I tried to make eye contact to make sure he could read on my firm expression he is supposed to yield to me. Everywhere I go, I'm being cut off by jerks. Earlier that day, in the same spot, a cyclist did the same thing to me. Cut me off and came so close to me, his shoulder in front of my face just barely touching. And I was so enraged that I actually wanted to push out and push the cyclist and watch him fall. He wasn't wearing a helmet. I'd see how that suits him on the pavement, and I'd enjoy it, because I am that enraged! So to be in the same spot of the crosswalk later that day, with a driver who was not paying attention, and the side of his car moving fast and coming dangerously close to my hip, was the last I could take of this brazen disregard for respect of my personal space, common courtesy, basic compassion. So I gritted my teeth and scrunched up my face, got a nice low stance, put my arm back, and baby slapped the side of the car. And a second after I did that, the car stopped short, and the door opened, and the dude came out, and now I could see his eyes. They were not happy. He started walking towards me, was coming right up to me, was saying something about his car, something about how I'm a fool, something about how I'm in for it. His eyes were cold and vacuous and full of contempt, and though they held my gaze, I could sense his fist, not quite held down at his side, at the ready. I probably could have sped off and outrun the guy had he tried to chase me, but I was dumbstruck and momentarily feeble-minded, and my feet wouldn't move, so I automatically did the next best thing. I hollered at the top of my lungs, "Somebody help me! I'm being attacked! Help!" And I put my arms over my face and crouched down away from him like I was bracing for an imminent blow. The intersection we were in has a popular restaurant on one corner, and it was a lively summer evening, so there were people around. From my hysterical protective cocoon stance, I saw someone crossing the street from the restaurant, looking at us, and motioning for the guy to back away, because I guess this guy really did look menacing. The moment felt so frenzied, and I never got a good look at the face of the guy who approached, but I heard him calmly persuade the driver to reconsider and lay off and not hit me. "Assault is assault," I heard him say. My head was just about at the level of their hips, and with a breath, I'd made my move. I darted through the space between where they were standing facing each other and jogged down the sidewalk and didn't look back, at least until after a few minutes. I peeked around the corner to make sure the driver was gone, and then I went back to the intersection. My adrenaline had died down, so I looked into the restaurant and saw someone who I thought might have been the guy who helped me if he put on a hat. So I politely asked him if he was the guy, but he wasn't, so that was awkward. I never found him, and I wanted to thank him. The guy who walked over to confront the driver didn't have to come to my defense or put himself in danger to help me, and he did it with what seemed like no hesitation. He was so calm and articulate. I'll never know who he is. I barely know what he looks like. I want him to know that I appreciate his kindness so much. I can only thank him privately, here and now. In a way, I think of him as an angel. After the ordeal was over, I felt mostly frayed and defeated, though with some small relief for having narrowly missed a more traumatic experience. I'm usually not a violent or confrontational person, so for me to burst out like that, to provoke that man into tense confrontation, to give in to my rage and to perpetuate violence, can I forgive myself? Can I forgive the other for his threat of violence? And what about the angel who appeared? What can I learn from an offering of divine grace? Horror serves its purpose. It is real because it has meaning, but death is never the end. At this time, violence exists. There is pain. But where there is meaning, there is fulfillment. The only struggle is the creative struggle, and death is the road to empathy. I want to be nice to everyone, and I want everyone to be nice to me. It's really hard. When I'm out walking down the sidewalk, I don't realize how unnerved I am. I emanate distrust and defensiveness, and I sense antagonism and carelessness in the faces of others passing me. I feel a nervous anticipation of conflict, and my heart rate goes up, and I'm short of breath. I'm one stroke away from lashing out. And suddenly, it's as if the world truly is a dark and volatile place, and I'm just a conductor of its rage. And it makes me feel sad. It all comes down to being nice. That's how to be happy, because what you give out comes back, right? If I had to rate my happiness on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, 10 being the happiest, I'd give myself a 7.5. Not bad. There was a time not too long ago when I was a 1.5 or 2, close to rock bottom. And I stayed there for a while, dangling above that bumpy surface. Though I felt rotten inside, I maintained an outward veneer of contentedness. And though it could be hard, I tried to continue to be nice. There are moments when I feel far out and away from myself, looking down at myself from a long distance, and I get the sensation that the most minute detail of my life, like the tiniest sliver of emotion, exists as an absolute, constantly fulfilling itself, so obvious and striking when looked at from far away that I can see it grow. But usually, I'm looking at life from my vantage point, and in these moments right here, everything is new and always changing. There are so many feelings running through me and details within which to immerse myself that I feel confused and overwhelmed and depleted. I thought I was on my spiritual path. I've forgotten awareness of being present in each moment. I've forgotten grace and self-assuredness. I've forgotten to do the right thing. My memory of the encounter with the driver lingers, and I still get flashbacks of his violent eyes and leering face and fingers clenched into a fist, and it makes me feel sick to my stomach. I remind myself of the angel who was there, whose face I didn't see. I thank him again for affirming my safety. There are always angels around. I could be someone's angel too. This is my spiritual path. I've forgotten how delightfully spontaneous the world is supposed to be. I can eradicate the bouts of anger that flare up in me by remembering to feel compassion, and maybe that will help me overcome the sadness I sometimes feel. I believe there are lessons to be learned from the power of kindness. The universe follows the call of its own rhythm, and so I must focus on what's going on in my head and in my space. I take charge of my existence by acting on the ever-present potential to be nice. It's not just what's going on in your head and in your space. It's not just what's happening outside of your door, discord and discourtesy. It's not just what's happening all over the planet, disconnection from nature and irreversible damage to it, slaughtering of innocents amidst a mainstream culture obsessed with violence, mass suffering and inconceivable injustices. It's the universe itself, rollicking and roiling in the throes of being here now. And though you may feel stilted and full of despair, and with each worsening atrocity, the feeling of numbness grows, hold fast to the oneness that is inherent within. And remember, loving kindness is present in everything you can see and everything you can't. Imagine being in a hot shower. The pressure is strong, and the water envelops you, and you cuddle up to the warmth, and you never want to come out because it feels so nice and loving. And you never want to come out because it feels so nice and loving. I have a pretty strong feeling that that's something like what being in the womb feels like. And I'm pretty sure I'm still not over my little cocoon getting sliced open for two gloved hands to come down and yank me out. I was a C-section, so it was like that. It's like when the water pressure in the shower shifts and stutters and instantly turns icy cold and you freak out and wake up. Trauma. The most primal, obvious trauma. Birth. You get out of the shower, you dry off and put some clothes on and go out, and even though it was nice in the steam and cleanliness, you cope with being out of the shower and on with your life, and it's okay. I have a feeling that being a baby is something like that. It was hard to leave, but now that you did, the world seems worth it. As a baby, you're constantly given love and attended to, hopefully, and if all of that goes well, you spend a lot of time just being really blissed out. Everything is always coming into focus, and any and every small thing is a wonder. Life is a trip. It moves on a steady, wave-like rhythm. You have no choice but to follow along. First, you understand positive and negative implications, but soon that simple spectrum multiplies exponentially in all directions of emotion, and before you can even comprehend all of that, you discover the intricate world of symbols upon speaking your first word. The more you learn, the further away you get from having a singularity with your surroundings. You learn to distinguish. Complexity sets in. Your emotions become more pronounced. Soon comes your personality, and later, your identity. The wave-like rhythm that your life once belonged to has changed its frequency and become a bit more frenetic. You learn to say the ABCs, and the guiding forces of the universe get locked away, still inside, but out of reach. You learn, and you forget. When you kill yourself, even though you don't know it. When the blood of others is on your hands, it is your own life's blood. Matter seems solid, but it deceives you. Consider multiple lives. Consider the threads of a tapestry. A single thread is fully itself and nothing less, but adds to the whole an indelible contribution. The roles are always reversing because there are new lessons to learn, new beginnings and endings within which to frame existence. You may have forgotten. Through living and dying and living again, one remembers. When I was 12, I discovered a lump on one of my testicles while away at summer camp. I was in the shower, and upon discovering it, I immediately thought to myself, I'm going to die. I made a pact with myself to not tell anyone, and to definitely not go to the nurse, for fear of having to go to the local hospital. And for over 3 weeks, I pretended everything was okay. Neither my peers nor the camp counselors knew that privately I suffered massive inner turmoil and an adolescent existential crisis, obsessively pondering over what it meant for me to die slowly of an illness. I feared pain and uncertainty, but I was most afraid of death as a void. I feared the forgetting of who I am. Shortly before school began, I went to the doctor for a checkup, and as soon as he closed the door, I burst into tears about my predicament. He gave me an examination, and just like that, assured me what I found is a common occurrence, is harmless, and I would be fine. I don't think about that lump often, but it's still there, right on my left testicle. I don't think about death often, but it's always there, a fact of existence. When I do ruminate on death, once in a while, I remind myself that one day I'm going to die. And I focus on assuaging my fear of death. Death as a void, or as the unknown, or whatever it may be. I calm myself down, and I fill myself with assurance, and I see myself in a different way, not far out and away from myself, but from a different angle, like there are new parameters set up in my mind, as if rather than being a subjective observer, I see through the eyes of an objective observer, observing myself. I see myself going about my days, doing the things I do and thinking the thoughts I think, and all of my traits and preferences that make me who I am. It all makes me want to laugh. This is me. This is my contribution. With this realization, I remember how extraordinarily special it is for me to be me. I tend to forget what that feels like. The trauma of birth can only be fulfilled by death. To understand that death is not a void or an end, but a transformation of consciousness, fulfills the paradoxical dilemma of our physical existence. My fear of death is so palpable. It's both innate and unnecessary. Having the intention to come to terms with death is to transcend the idea of death. The result of that is the affirmation of life. The inevitability of death is humbling. It's a good reminder to be focused in the present moment and to remember to act with grace. It's a constant reminder to be nice. Nature strives for excellence, but there is no such thing as perfect. To be perfect is to be complete. It admits finality, the end. No growth, no desire, no fulfillment. Purpose is perfection. Purpose, not as a means to completion, but as a means to fulfillment, and as a reminder of the vital source of energy called life. There is always more to be reached, more to be absorbed. One is ever evolving. The universe is always expanding, and so are you. With this, I know death isn't the end. I'll think of it as an adventure. And I know not to focus on death because that's not what I'm here to do. I am here to use my life as a blueprint for changing the world through compassion. I open myself to unending positivity, and suddenly it's everywhere I can see and everywhere I can't. I am a channel for this energy. It enters through the top of my head and infuses me with love and affects a change in me. From this energy, I'm taught things that I've forgotten, like how to live with goodness in my heart and make the most of my existence, how to spread myself with love and give that love to others. And now the energy emanates in waves, expanding away from me, passing through everything else, while also enriching me. And that is value fulfillment. Value fulfillment. A pristine truth that we are born with the knowledge of, and then may have forgotten. A simultaneous learning and growing, a deepening of an ideal, an expansion into the complexity of its meaning, everything getting better, richer, a profound accomplishment as simple and satisfying as quenching one's thirst. Value fulfillment isn't meant to be rigid or moralized. It's to be thought through and understood intuitively. It's both private and experienced en masse. It's happening everywhere, all of the time, and it is duration itself. Value fulfillment is a divine measurement of growth and a striving for excellence. Value fulfillment is an invaluable tool in creating a better life for myself and for everyone else, and for building a better world. Value fulfillment is the most important lesson I will ever learn. It's so simple. Be nice. And yet, it's so hard. Look at how royally fucked up our world is. I am learning that within each of us is human growth and perseverance, education entwined with experience. allegories we see played out in the stories of various religions. But it's way beyond religion. It's a story, or a rite of passage, or an archetypal lesson plan that is played out over and over again, where the circumstances and outcomes vary, but there is always the noble setup, an adventure set forth with the intention to discover the truth, a simultaneous learning and growing. A cycle that arcs and looms above me, awaiting my ascent. The cycle has been completed many times before me, and will be completed by others after me. Now it is my turn to take part in this ritual of the spirit and grow. I affirm my life by practicing compassion. I strive to improve the quality of my life and the lives of all others. I aim for excellence. Value fulfillment is what God strives to achieve. And it's what I'm trying to achieve. Shine the white light. It exists within every person. Beautiful divinity. It's ours to use. Shine it on all. It's a simultaneous sense of abandonment and responsibility. It's surrendering. Shine the white light. All humans are special. All beings deserve the dignity life affords. All shine with light. All are loved. Life is value. Fulfill it. Hold others to the esteem you hold yourself. Equate the meaning of your life with the lives of all others. Shine your white light. And remember, with death comes empathy, but one can remember first. At Dixon Place for hosting the show and putting on the Hop Festival. Please support all the other acts in the Hop Festival coming up, and please buy a drink from our lovely bartender Kayla. Thank you.